Hey guys, you are listening to episode 9 of the Creative Talk podcast. Today we're going to talk about the difference between videography and cinematography. So, in your eyes, James, because this is very subjective, what do you think the differences are between a videographer and a cinematographer, or videography versus cinematography?
I think one of the biggest differences is like your team size, if that makes sense. Because like you and Kate, for instance, like video, like you guys doing video, like doing weddings, for instance, like a lot of the times, like it's just like one person, or at least the people I know doing wedding videography, it's just one person, and you're probably shooting, like a lot of people I know shooting automatic, and whereas in cinematography you got a whole team there, and
It's like the
you're
size of the crew.
this. Yeah, I mean, the cinematographer sometimes isn't even the one messing with the camera. It's they have um
Directing
the camera ops, and
the
yeah.
look of how everything's flowing. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, well, like a wedding, would you consider like someone shooting a wedding film? Is a wedding film, is that videography or cinematography?
I think it kind of really
I
depends.
think so too. I think so
Like,
too.
yeah, I mean, I think starting out, when you're starting out, I think it's videography. But I think if you're able to, like, we've talked about like me helping you guys, on weddings eventually. Like, I think once you start having more people uh, to be able to film, I think that's kind of, you can take, in a sense, take more time. I guess, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
you'll always have like more shots than what you'll need than if you're just solo. So.
So, I'll read this piece from our article on absorbproductions.com. I'll link it in the show notes. This is an overview me and Caitlin came up with here. There's more here if anybody wants to read it, but the overview, I'm just going to read it straight from here, is the world of video production is a wide and varied industry that includes both traditional crew roles as well as encompassing solo work, and with video becoming more and more popular medium. There is a growing confusion around the roles inside the industry. Videography and cinematography are terms that are often used by general public and are sorry. Videography and cinematography are terms that are often used by the general public interchangeably. However, each of these terms have deeper meanings behind them. Typically, someone who simply documents things through video is a videographer, and someone who creates and directs content to create a more distinguished video is a cinematographer. And then we go on to kind of briefly describe the main differences between a videographer and cinematographer. Now, I think it is subjective. I think it's very, especially nowadays, because I think, with as much damage as someone can do by themselves, are they directing the project in a cinematographer way or a videographer way? In my opinion, I feel like a videographer is someone who just documents things as is. They kind of
Mhm.
put up a camera and record something that, whatever, like an most event work, I would say, is videography work,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
that's where I was asking, like a wedding kind of falls. It can be a wedding film can be shot like an event in just a videographer way where you're showing up and just capturing, not really paying attention to what you're filming, why you're filming it to tell the story, but you're just kind of uh, aimlessly capturing everything without a clear end project in which you're making there.
Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting that you brought that up, because I was, well, it had been Saturday night. I was watching that documentary on the last blockbuster that's in
Oh
Oregon.
yeah, I haven't seen that, but
Yeah, and honestly, like, it literally reminds me of videography. It just doesn't, like, the lighting. It was very run and gun,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
So that definitely reminds me of more of a like videography than cinematography.
yeah. I think a cinematographer is paying attention more of what is each frame telling, camera angle, the lighting, the composition, whereas a videographer just puts the camera in front of whatever it needs to be in front of and captures it. That's why I
Mhm.
like a ceremony. Let's use a wedding ceremony. Or wedding speeches. So a videographer may just put a camera up wide, just somewhere. Could be an awkward frame. Not saying that they could be framed well, but or could not be framed well. But maybe they're just putting one camera up, recording the whole thing. Where maybe as a cinematographer may use like multicam setup when there's a reason behind like a close up frame, a close up angle, and a wide angle, so like they can punch in on the close ups when they're getting intimate or saying something real meaningful. Or a cinematographer may even bring lights or position the
Yeah.
camera and maybe ask them to stand in certain places. Like, can you stand here where the light is better or where this, is more flattering on camera? And a videographer may not even think about that kind of stuff. I think those are the biggest differences between a cinematographer and a videographer is what other tools are you using to tell the story? What are you using to
Mhm.
mold and craft the story that you're trying to either capture, even if you're capturing a story that's already there with a documentary
Mhm.
or just narrative stuff? I mean, I don't think you can be a videographer making narrative stuff. I think you have to think
Yeah.
cinema. But videography work would be like, that's where I think there is a difference between videography work and cinematography work. And they can overlap.
Mhm.
Like, you can get a videography job and shoot it like a cinematographer, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah, I don't think I think another thing, the difference of the two is time. Uh,
yes.
like video, there's a big difference in shooting a wedding versus shooting even a short film. You could be on a set on a short film for hours and hours. I mean, like 16, 20 hours.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like how long does it take you guys to like film a wedding?
Well, it varies wedding to wedding, but I mean,
Mm.
it's
Mhm.
easily 14 hour days, if not,
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah.
um, getting there, packing, drive, if they're an hour,
Mhm.
2 hour drive or like out of state, So, I mean, all that time adds up. But
Okay.
you're talking about
Yeah,
like
that's fair.
time shooting. Like,
Yeah. Mhm.
I like to have, like, for ceremony, if I can if it's like ceremony, I'll use 4 or 5 different cameras to make sure I got
Mhm.
coverage everywhere. So I like to have at least a half hour or so to get them cameras set up, for that. And I do light the dance floor. I do bring a light for any
Okay,
spot.
I
Yeah.
do remember you talking about
I'll
that.
bring that,
Mhm.
and depending on where speeches are too, I'll try to get that light over there. But it's kind of, weddings are run and gun. The weddings are
Yeah.
very. That's where it's like they're a videography job. I think for sure.
Mhm.
But you could think like a cinematographer and shoot it more like a documentary because you are just documenting
Mhm.
a day in the end is what you're doing. But
Yeah.
and what you just brought up a minute ago was like time, how much time you put into the project, not only shooting, like setting up the camera and paying attention to the framing, picking your shots and lighting, setting lights up. It's like was you bringing in multiple lights, you're already starting to think like a cinematographer.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, not even really thinking about weddings, for instance, but like more like narrative wise, like once you start bringing, like you said, once you start bringing in lights and then you start bringing in like a bunch of big equipment, like if you have dollies
Oh
or,
yeah,
anything like
yeah,
that,
because
then
now you're thinking
yeah,
about
that's
emotion
huge.
between each frame, and that's where
Mhm.
a cinematographer will craft emotion out of the visuals, where a videographer will capture information. Like will
Mhm.
capture what is more what is happening in front of the camera, and a cinematographer will capture more of what's the emotion that's happening on the other side of the camera. Like what are you wanting to,
Mhm.
to capture in um, what's the word? I can't think of a simple word. Show, show your viewers. But even when it comes to editing, I
Mhm.
feel like a videographer. When I think videographer, I think probably aren't color grading. Maybe they
Right.
are. I don't know. It's like nowadays, I feel like things are. I always think when I hear videographer, the guy with one tripod and just like a camcorder, a JVC camcorder, at a school of play event or something. That's that's what I think of. I'm not discrediting people who claim
No, no, definitely not. No.
yeah, if you call yourself videographers, nothing wrong with it. I think it's just two different types of jobs. And sometimes it
Mhm.
makes sense to operate like a videographer on some jobs, you know? If
Mhm.
you're maybe you are just supposed to capture a play or something like that on stage, then I mean, you kind of a videographer would excel there because you're just capturing what needs to be captured in that way.
Yeah, I think with videography, starting out in videography, like so many people do, whether that be weddings or corporate stuff or whatever, I think you eventually, yeah, like we talked about, you eventually do go into thinking like a cinematographer.
Yeah.
Like once you do it so long, you're like, well, this needs to be better. Like somehow, some
Yeah.
way, I need to stand out, and
If
whether
you
that's
want.
hiring more people or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um yeah, I never thought of that. Like almost everybody does. I mean, you start off as a videographer before you're anything else. If
Oh
you're just
yeah.
picking a camera up and you're doing any kind of work, but um I mean, audio too. Now, would you say like a videographer comes along with this? I feel like I don't want to like discredit videographers, but like this is all subjective. I think it all really is.
Mhm.
They, there's probably cinematographers out there who call themselves videographers, but audio, like being understanding audio, bringing mics, running audio. Now, not that that's part of cinema, but I mean in the freelance world, not saying it's
Mhm.
one individual person, but when someone's paying for a project that's claimed to be, cinematic, audio should be included in that too, right? You know?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, it's like what like I mean, I'm sure we've talked about before on an episode where it's like you can always make a bad picture look good with good audio, but you can
Yeah.
never make
Oh yeah.
the opposite.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's audio is
Oh
huge.
yeah.
Plus, audio is not. I think it's like no matter videography or cinematography, I think they're both easier than audio.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I just
Audio's its own little dark world there, but
it is.
respect to all them audio engineers. Um but yeah, and I think that's where a cinematographer uses more than just a camera to tell its stories, That's where I think the
Mhm.
lighting, I mean, audio, I know it doesn't really fall into that. It would, I think, for the smaller indie crew, you know,
Yeah.
someone, but lighting, composition, what's in the frame, what are they seeing? Where are they putting the subject? Say it's an interview. If a videographer is shooting an interview, and I imagine that is somebody just setting up a camera with an onboard mic, and that's probably it. Now, the
Mhm.
cinematographer is going to walk into a room, think, what's the interview? Who are they interviewing? Well, what are they? Is this a candid interview? Is it a scripted interview? There's so many questions on like, what's the vibe? Pick where you're shooting in the room, set the camera up, look at the frame, check what are you seeing in the frame? What is there? What needs to be in the background? Is there any little bit of things or color that's gonna help sell the emotion that you're going for? And then work with the lighting from there.
And I think cinematographer probably would even go as far as the the weeks of planning ahead of
Oh
time
yeah.
for like whoever they're interviewing for whatever reason, like even as far as clothes, like coloring of clothes go, like
Oh yeah.
down to the very niche thing.
Yes. Especially if it's something planned um like from my experience, like a corporate ad, like a commercial.
Mhm.
Because I'm more familiar with the commercial work than I am the narrative stuff. But it's narrative. I mean, the commercial stuff is narrative. There's a narrative there.
Mhm.
So I mean, picking what they are going to wear, where are we shooting at? This is very important. I mean, it's the process is all the same. But yeah, a cinematographer or a DP thinks of that stuff. But
Mhm.
um, but it just, I mean, even when it comes down to lenses, thinking about what gear to bring, what lens is gonna
Mhm.
give you a certain vibe or mood for this type of video, whether it be anamorphic, vintage, maybe you want the super sharp. I mean, there's so many options, or do you want it really wide? Do you want it tight, close, and personal? A
And it's
videographer.
so funny. I seen a couple different arguments on both sides of like, oh well, lenses are important, but lighting is even more important because if you don't have the lighting right,
Yeah.
it really doesn't matter what kind of lens you have. And I think that's obviously cinematography
Yeah.
because videography, like we talked about, is more run and gun. But yeah, that's a huge thing for cinematography world.
Lighting. I feel like if you're really paying attention to lighting, you're working with lights. I
Hmm.
think that's where, to me, lighting is the biggest difference between a videographer and cinematographer in general. I think when it comes to tools, I think a videographer. What do you think of when you hear like, oh, we hired a videographer. He's here filming this thing. What's that guy look like and what's he using?
um, well, I feel like it's only one person, and
Yeah.
I mean, typical like envisioning if I wasn't in this world, I'd think of one person, one camera, maybe a mic attached to the camera. One of the one of the little Rode mics, and
It's always a road. It will
that's
always
about
be a
it.
road.
Yeah.
Road mic. But yeah, that's about what I imagine too. And usually
I think
I feel like that person probably has like an overkill tripod too for some reason. Some reason they have like that would, I don't know why, but I think I just think of that one guy at like a high school thing I'd seen. I was like, he had like a little JVC camera and he had this, I don't know what brand it was at the time, but it was this giant tripod. They probably had like an 80-pound weight capacity and he's using this little 1 pound plastic Walmart. I don't know, but I was like, what are you
little point and shoot.
yeah, I was like, man. But but I feel like
I think
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think something else as far as videography, I think it's something that helps is working with, like, let's just say if you're just doing weddings, like you're working with a lot of natural light, and I think that you kind of have to learn to work with natural light first, and then you can work with anything
Yeah.
else. Like once you get to the level of being able to be a cinematographer, um, I mean, I feel like you would know, like, okay, I need this light here, this light there, shooting
Hmm.
these directions, and then.
And I think, yeah, I think a cinematographer, even a cinematographer doesn't need the lights, but they know how to
Mhm,
use light. So, like you're
mhm,
saying, yeah, if you go, like a cinematographer is going to be paying attention to where the light is and how to use it to their advantage, through a window. Like, where's this window out? Where's light coming in this room? Where's it falling? Where am I going to seat this person? Where a videographer may just wherever that person is, just start.
yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Maybe they put them in front of the light. Flat lighting. I always see a lot of that too. So
Mhm,
like early on when I started doing my interviews, I'd bring like I had a 1 by 1 LED and a softbox. Like I set that up, and I think like it looked okay, looked good. I was using the A6500, but this is so flat, and it's like news station stuff. Like a news interview. News would be a
mhm,
good example, I think, of like videography. All those news pieces you see, like I mean, that's run and gun stuff. I mean, in its purest form. When people show up, they get a story, shoot an interview, and they always get like a B roll of, let's say it's a crime scene or someone talking about a house fire. They always got like the camera showing like the police car, the grass. It always looks like they're trying, trying to like make it visually interesting. I feel like it'd be a tough job, you know, showing up and trying to like shoot the interview and it's like capture stuff around to show. But hey, I'm interrupting this episode to remind you guys that if there's any topics you want to hear us discuss or you yourself are creative and want to be on our podcast, you can email us at thecreativetalk@absorbproductions.com. We're always looking to expand the topics and we'd love talking to creatives in any industry, whether it's filmmaking, photography, or if you do anything in the creative field, we'd love to hear from you. The email again is thecreativetalk@absorbproductions.com. Now I'll let you get back to the episode.
yeah, I don't think honestly, like I've done weddings, but I don't know if I could ever do. I don't think I could ever do be a videographer for news channel. It's way too much. Just
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's too much run and gun because I mean that's kind of what weddings are in a sense, but Yeah, I
Yeah.
just I never see myself being able to do news.
I wanted to for a while because before I didn't know what jobs there were, and I thought that was like news camera operator for a news station. I thought it'd be it. But
Mhm.
me, uh, me and Caitlin were out, and we run into a news. I don't remember what channel it was, whatever. But it is news reporter twice, and of course, like I wasn't ready to be on. They asked if we want to be on camera and ask us about something. I don't remember. I was like, I ended up saying no because I remember I did not look good that day. I remember like in messy hair. So I don't know. It's like, oh no, of course this would be the one time. So but anyways, the reporter was by herself with the camera on the tripod, and she was the reporter. So
Oh,
she was like carrying the camera. And I was wondering, is that how they're doing it now, or is it the option for the reporter to like check out the camera and like go hit whatever they need to store? I don't know, but it was just her by
so
herself.
yeah, so she really have to know both
Yeah,
jobs.
I don't know,
Wow.
and I wonder. And then it
Mhm.
made me think: is the reporter like also editing it their pieces? Is that how that works? Do the I don't know. The kind of I started to think, is the reporter the journalist that finds the stories, is checks out a camera from the station, tries to go capture the story on their own, and like brings it back, and they just see if it airs, or I don't know how that works.
Which would be so difficult, I feel
Oh, I think
like. I
so.
mean, you're out there by yourself and you don't know, especially if you're going live
Yeah.
at the same time.
Can you imagine though, like you
Good
being a
luck.
journalist and writer, and then you have to figure out how to work a camera,
Like,
like
oh yeah, you gotta work a camera. You gotta figure it out while
that.
you're there.
I would I would say they're basically a videographer too,
Mhm. Oh, and that, yeah, for sure.
but and
I'd even say almost barely, because I mean that's knowing that you're doing bare minimum.
yeah,
But
but yeah, I think cinematography is I don't want to say harder. I want to say there's more thought. I don't want
mhm,
to say personally, my definition, it's harder when I get like a job that I know is like, oh, it's more of a videography job, and I do videography jobs, so like I'm not saying I'm not a videographer. I do videography work, but I much rather be doing the cinematography stuff, take.
mhm.
And then it also comes down to like what's the job pay? Are you going to take the time to bring all your lights, and is there enough time to sit down and storyboard and set the stuff up, or is it like you get here, you don't know what you're doing until you're there filming, and it is truly run and gun. Um, then I could feel like videography, but to me, I feel like videography is mostly event stuff.
Mhm.
I feel like it kind of falls under that, just event stuff. Um, Now, like, what would you call like? Say there's a broadcast studio and they do live streaming. Would that be cinema or videography, or is broadcast its own thing,
Mm,
like live stream?
I feel like that might fall into the videography category.
I think
Just
it's more of like the
yeah,
workflow of a videographer. I still
yeah,
think.
and I mean, I guess it really depends though too. Like how, like what are you doing all for the broadcast? Like, is it a controlled setting? Are you?
Yeah, it could be a nicely lit, staged area and multi. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know where that falls in, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
But I really think event stuff is where a videographer excels. That's where it makes sense to be a videographer in those situations. But
Mhm.
um, I'm not saying, yeah. I don't. I feel like I'm discrediting videographers, but I don't know. I just don't. I don't really like that title anymore. Because I
It's
feel like
video. Yeah, makes you fat sound kind of amateurish,
it does, and
almost.
that's
Yeah.
kind of just my opinion, and or maybe not even amateur, but like it's a different product. Like I like to call myself a
Mhm.
cinematographer because it's like I there's a lot more that goes into what I do than just video. We always say like
Right.
one of our sayings here at Absorb is we don't just sit down and hit record. There's
Mhm.
so much more that happens before that and even after. During even.
And I think that's what a lot of people think. I mean, uh, kind of throwing photography into it a little bit. Like I feel like that's what a lot of people think. You're like, oh, you're hiring this person to do this. Um, like, oh, you just have a camera. You just hit one button, and then
Yeah.
you're good.
Oh, did you hate that when
Yeah.
like people ask what camera you use? What camera is that? Like, oh, I got to get me one of those. It's
Why do you need
like,
it?
like, oh, it's a new, it's. I mean, you shoot on an older camera, don't you? The 60
Right.
in it, your 60D,
Oh, the Canon 60 Mark II.
6D Mark II. Yeah, when'd
Mhm.
that come out?
Yep.
Thing's beautiful.
Oh, that came out. I got it about 3 years ago, and I think it was already maybe a year or two old by that
Oh, okay.
time.
So yeah.
And it still produces
Oh my gosh,
great
fantastic
images
photos you take. I love it. But
because it's like a 26.2 or 26.4
mm,
megapixel, one of the two. I can't remember. Um, but yeah, it just goes to show you though too. Like a lot of times people will be like, "Oh, higher the megapixel camera, the better."
no, nope,
Nope,
not at all.
definitely not.
Nope. Especially there's so many. There's trade offs, but definitely higher megapixels. You need bigger prints
Yeah, for
and
sure.
really detailed editing.
But even then, you're like a 26.4 megapixel camera, you can print huge
Oh
and it's still
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
So it's just like,
Yeah, unless you're doing some really detailed Photoshop stuff, like Caitlin,
mhm,
she's got to have her megapixels.
fair
But
enough.
yeah, and the cropping abilities are nice. Since
Mhm.
I got to shoot with the R for the first time, yesterday, and like I got to see the benefits of being able to punch in and crop it. The options are pretty cool with it, but
Now the R, was that a 40,
oh,
47,
40.
50,
I'll have to look it up. I think it's a 42. It's
42?
not 50. I think the R4 is. I think it's 50.
Okay.
Huh? 43 megapixels.
43.
43
Okay. Wow.
megapixels. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Caitlin still wants more, but um, we,
I don't blame
yeah.
her.
Well, I was saying like, geez, like you may as well go medium format and get
Mhm.
a Hasselblad one day, but maybe.
Yes, I really want one of those, and there's another company, and I don't know how to pronounce it. And I feel kind of bad, but it's the Mamiya,
Yes, I
Mamiya.
know you're talking about. I think it is Mamiya. That's how I've always pronounced
Is
it.
it
They
Mamiya?
make the
Yeah.
old school where you look straight down in the
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I really want one of those.
Yes. I think I have what do we have? Uh, The antique one. I don't know. Caitlin's grandparents got us an antique. It's not a Mamiya, but it's like the top down kind of
Mhm.
camera. But those are cool. But yeah, it's Mamiya
Yeah,
still
they look
make
amazing.
they make
I don't really know. I was looking it up the other day, and the one that I seen, it looked pretty new. But I don't know if they're because uh some companies are still bringing up new medium format
yeah.
cameras, but I don't know if Mamiya is or not.
Medium format is a very very niche camera.
Very,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, I could like to get one day. Um,
Hmm.
I think they're more for studio shooters than like,
I think so. Yeah. Hmm.
but yep,
Kind of got a tangent over on photography.
yeah. Well, I was sitting there thinking we could go on about do an episode on um medium format types of
Hmm.
sensors and who they're for. But
Yeah, that'd be pretty interesting
would
because I mean, I don't know a ton about medium format, which is something I actually want to dive more
yeah,
into,
I would too.
um, because outside of like doing because me personally, I see myself as kind of I want to say a photographer first, just because that's what I do primarily.
Hmm.
Like a lot of people have asked, especially here recently, I've gotten so many requests about photography. So I kind of see myself as a photographer first, as far as like getting paid for it. But on the other end, I see myself more as like a director first.
Yeah,
So it just kind of, well, what project am I doing?
yeah. We'll get you more opportunities there.
Mhm.
We got to work together on something. We got to do something together.
Absolutely.
Um, do some cinematography work together, not
Mhm.
videography. But
Oh, that 6K Pro, that
there
that
we
that will
go.
be coming. That will be in my
Now
hands.
that is not a videographer's camera.
No.
A videographer's camera, JVC from Walmart. No, no, I think the modern videographer is someone with a Sony. I'm gonna I have the same setup too, but the Sony A7, the A7 series, A7 II, A7 III, the
Right.
A6000s, and then the Ronin S. Everyone's got
Hmm.
to have the gimbal. That's probably they show up with. Yeah, it's not the overkill tripod now. It's just a gimbal for no reason, for no freaking reason. Just bring a gimbal, run around everywhere. that's, that's
Do
the
you
modern videographer.
remember? Um, Gosh, what are those things called? I don't know why I'm blinking. You know, Devin Supertramp.
That's so weird. I was just watching him a couple hours ago.
Yeah, you know the one that he carries the
His what? The glide cam?
yeah, the glide
Yeah,
cam. That's what
yeah.
that's
He's
what I was
still
thinking.
using that.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Like I don't think a lot of people are anymore.
No, I had one, and I like the look of it better than a gimbal, but I couldn't get it. I just too
Same.
much technique.
Yep.
I think I sold mine, or yeah, I had it
I
off
think it's
brand, but yeah, it was such a
yeah,
pain.
same.
And then once I got
Yeah.
the Ronin M, I ended up using that way more. Even though I
Hmm.
like the organic look of the glide cam, 'cause I think the
Hmm.
glide cam's the closest thing you can get to a steady cam. I think that the look and
Hmm.
feel moving around, and yeah, Devin Supertramp still uses that. It cracks me up.
Yeah.
That's so weird you say. I
I
literally looked him up today. I was like, wonder what he's up to, because he was,
well,
he was the
it
guy
was
years ago.
interesting. Oh
He was
yeah.
Peter
I
McKinnon,
mean, they
what, like 8
kind
years
of.
ago?
Hmm. I mean, they kind of like. I don't want to say fell off, but they just kind of like. I think they really have to, in a sense, kind of like almost rebrand a little bit and like really try something new. Because I mean, I know that there's the pandemic and they a lot of their work stopped, but
You talking about Devin
I
Supertramp?
looked
Oh yeah,
because they went they started a couple channels actually,
yeah. I
a
noticed
couple
that.
sub channels, and they were kind of talking about how it's not really taking off like they thought it
Yeah,
would. But yeah, it was interesting because I looked up the glide cam the other day and it was like 800 dollars. I'm like,
still, yeah.
yeah, I was like, wow, you could get a DJI Ronin S for
Mm-hmm.
half that.
There's pros and cons to them, but yeah, I just didn't have the
Mhm.
patience to balance that thing and check. Oh, so, like
Yeah,
thinking back now,
even off-brand ones.
yeah, it just
Yeah.
I don't know. I still like the look better, but I just don't have the time for it. I don't really get to work where I have the time to mess with that kind of stuff. Where,
Right.
um, yeah, I eventually just want to straight up buy the tilt a float is what I'm after, but I don't
Hmm.
know if that's going to
Ooh.
get the same look. I want to see more people using it, because
Hmm.
it's still a gimbal. It's not. I don't know. I feel like it's going to look too precise and robotic.
I was gonna say, I was like, would you use like that? Probably wouldn't be a every project type of
I probably would if I bought it
type
though.
of thing. Oh, would you?
I would make the
Yeah, that's
project and
fair.
make it work for that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
because I mean, as much money you're just spending on it, you might as well.
I honestly, I was sitting there thinking like, it would replace everything. I would think I
Mhm.
wouldn't need my slider, my gimbal. I mean, it would be
And
my gimbal. Other
you
than,
talk about walking on set and
oh my gosh,
everybody be like, "Oh my gosh."
that's on my list. I want that. There's just so much more. I need bigger lights. I need more grip gear, more
Mhm.
cinematography gear. But yeah, I'm probably gonna just one day just buy the tilt a float and the FX6 all together as a bundle. I probably will.
Oof.
Probably just gonna like do a mass. It's kind of what I'm just waiting to like just do a massive overhaul, because
Mhm.
I've really been focusing on more of the not the gear, but I'm trying to like shift my mindset to the product. The
Like more
cinematography
like
mindset.
story.
I'm tired of like thinking
Yeah.
about what I
Okay.
need to bring. I need to think of like what do I want to get out of the video or film I'm making, and then
Mhm.
backtrack from there. Instead of like, oh, I
Right.
want to use this lens. I just got it for the sake of using like gear. I feel like
Yeah, that was interesting.
that's a videographer thought.
Right. And it's just like another thing. Like Peter McKinnon, I don't know if you saw, but he just like did a whole like purge of all of his stuff because I
Yeah.
think he was getting at more of the lines of like once you have so much gear, it stresses you out because
Yeah.
you're like, well, do I bring this or do I just bring it
So
all? But
would
then,
you say Peter McKinnon falls more the lines of a videographer or cinematographer? He's a gray, I
um,
think.
yeah, I wouldn't. Personally, I think it's more cinematography now because I think a lot of the projects that he does
Yeah.
that aren't like, oh, I'm throwing up a YouTube
Yeah.
video, and even him doing just a sit down talking to the camera type of thing. He still has all the lights
Yeah.
rigged
So
up
that's where
and
I don't
his.
know the difference of he's a good example of surely anybody listening to this knows who he is. If not,
Mhm.
I'd be really proud of somebody if they knew who we were before Peter McKinnon.
Right.
but if that is true, please comment and email us. You will be our favorite listener. Um, anyways, he's because when he started off, I mean, I would call him a videographer. Seeing the stuff he
Oh yeah.
does, he just a DSLR and just making cool videos and cool, really, really trendy stuff. He
Oh
set the
yeah.
trends, but
Yeah, he
the
sure did,
whip
and
pans and the like that stuff to me, that's videography.
it
That's
is.
and whatever, just shaking
and,
cameras at crap. But
and the thing like that is once somebody starts that kind of thing, then everybody else's video you see, you're like, oh, Peter
yes,
McKinnon.
so and they're cool
So
videos. They are cool and they have a
for
place,
sure, yeah.
especially on the internet. But that's where I don't think cinematography and then like do whip pans and
Hmm.
I don't, what are some other trendy things they're doing now? But I don't know.
Yeah, because I feel like videographers in that sense are more like their transitions are the story more
Yeah,
than like the
yeah.
characters of the subject of the
It's like
video
they make
or
this film
film or
for
whatever.
just to show off transitions, but
Right.
yeah. Um,
And you can only have so many transitions until it's like, okay, I'm just not even gonna watch this
yeah,
anymore.
yeah. And I try to do that stuff, and I'll put time into transition, and then I'll be like, why am I doing this? And I'll put so much time into some kind of cool like what's the like bleed transition where it looks like the like bleeds through
Oh,
I forget what it's called. Anyways, those things that was trendy. That
mhm.
whip pans, I've done those, and I'm like, what? Like it doesn't serve a purpose. Like this video is just
Right.
cool for the sake
Mhm.
of being cool. And it's and I always end up just backtracking that stuff. I'll try stuff too. Even with my wedding films, I'll add like I feel like it's really corny now, but like the cool flare transitions, they can be
Mhm.
cool, but I feel like sometimes I'm like, man, that's just corny. That's because
Yeah.
you don't see that in movies.
Exactly.
Like Star Wars did the sidewipe stuff. They did do, that.
And I feel like they're almost about the only
That's
movies
yeah.
or anything that can pull that
Yeah,
off.
I know. I don't. It's still. I mean, anything else, like it's weird. I mean, now they do stuff in Hollywood, movies. You do see cool transitions, like, but it's
Yeah. Mhm.
it's with taste.
Mhm.
There's thought behind it. It wasn't like, hey, let's just do a whip pan to the next scene, because, or yeah, there's thought
Yeah, because
behind it.
the last thing you wanna do is discombobulate your audience
Just whipping
and
them,
lose their interest.
whipping them around, throwing them in the air, and yeah. And you see it with drone stuff too, like with the FPV drones becoming more
Yes.
popular. How many FPV drone videos have you seen of them flying through a tent? That
Oh
little
my
transition.
gosh. Yeah.
DJI even used it in their ad, and I was like, man, even DJI jumped on but um, yeah,
And
just
now with DJI making their own, it's gonna be
yeah.
a lot more of
Oh
that.
yes, everyone's gonna be flying through everything with It's cool to fly through something, but you always see that mask transition. It is cool, but
Yeah, for sure.
that's
It
videography stuff. To me,
yeah.
that's the modern
Mhm.
videographer is the trendy stuff. You're
Mhm.
running in with a camera and a gimbal and whip panning and making cool videos. You're making cool content, but you're you're just doing cool things for the sake of doing cool things. Which, in the end,
Right.
it's like why
Yeah.
why do you? I don't know. Cinema is telling story in a cinematic way.
And I feel like that's what YouTube pretty much is anymore. If you're Yeah, I guess it depends on what you're watching on YouTube, but yeah, I feel like that's what a lot of YouTube is
Now,
anymore.
in a good example of this is look at Philip Bloom and then look at Peter McKinnon.
Mhm.
I don't know what Peter McKinnon's new stuff looks like now, but like look at his videos. and I know he
Mhm.
has, Peter McKinnon does have some films, real films. I know that. But I
Mhm.
mean, like overall YouTube videos in general.
Oh yeah.
And Philip Bloom shoots all of his YouTube videos like they're films. And you don't see him doing some, corny whip transitions and stuff like that. Now, I call them corny. That's an opinion. That's 100% opinion. Um, they're cool, but I don't see where that would land in any of my work. Um,
Right.
Professionally, it's hard to figure out where that, unless you're doing product ads, are like the only thing I could really think of where that would, whether it's a drink, a beverage, or I don't know, some weird roller blades or something that's just out there. But um, yeah, that's what and that stuff is just always, I always think videographer right off the bat when I see that. And I think that's the difference between a cinematographer's work and a videographer. But like there is overlap, and you can
Mhm.
fall on both and you can do both. A videographer can be a cinematographer can be a videographer. But I think those are
Yeah.
the biggest things. What are some jobs you think of that you would right off the bat is like that's a videographer?
Mm, well, for starters, definitely weddings.
So yeah, I call weddings like no
Between
matter how much time I put into them or try to, you know, um, you try the best you can to make it a cinema. And that's what you're doing.
yeah.
But I feel like it's always a videography job. It is.
Yeah, because I think with weddings, you're like, you're not on your time.
Yeah.
You're on everybody else's time, So you can't really, like, you can maybe, like, hey, ask the bride and groom, like, hey, can you kind of pull you to the side and we do this little thing for the wedding film? But I mean,
And that's
you'd be lucky
even
if you get a
just
couple
that's about as
minutes.
much control as you get is that, and
Yeah.
that's it. And even with the documentary, you're in control. Even if it's you're capturing like a live document, a live, you still can be like, hey, can we take a few steps back here? Can we do this here? Can we step over here?
Mhm.
You can't keep doing that in a wedding, like over and
Right.
over, just constantly like, hey, can we do this? Can you stand over here? Can we do that over here? Can we do that? Like there's so many other pieces involved that you aren't in control of. But
I think another one would be sports, though, too.
yeah,
Mhm.
sports would, yeah, I, I can't even imagine trying. Yeah, that's videography.
trying to
I
make
was like,
trying to make sports
yeah, you can't redo
cinematic.
plays like that and stuff, like unless it was a straight up narrative on a ball game or something. But yeah,
Mhm.
sports. That now, what's a cinematographer's job look like? Now, I mean that could be anything narrative. I think anything.
Mhm.
Now it's like anything planned. You're
Yeah.
planning it, but a videographer can plan to do stuff too. Come in with the whip
True. Yeah.
whip
I think
transitions and
I think with cinematographer though, like we mentioned earlier, you have the time to be able to storyboard and you know what you're gonna get, and that's what you're gonna get.
Mhm.
As far as videographer, you're like, yeah, I have this small little shot list for what I get, but
Yeah, a
I feel like
videographer
you're kind of
may,
lucky.
yeah, go in and just no idea what they're filming. Say they're going, let's say a restaurant ad. They're gonna go in there, do a whole bunch of cool shots of food and cool close-ups, really cool transitions, and got to do the whip pans and probably has gimbal, coming in and all. But we're like and then they kind of, I would imagine they come home and then make the video as after they shot it, like they're making it in the edit.
Mhm.
Whereas a cinematographer will go in, figure out what they're doing. What are the shot by shots and why? What are we showing? What are we trying to portray? What is there a vibe you want to nail from your restaurant that you want people to like get the mood, of what it's like to sit in here or eat or the type of food. And even that could have voiceover, could have customer testimonials or even the owner talking about the restaurant. That's all those little details, all the little things that come together, I think,
Mhm.
that are thought of ahead. Now, that doesn't mean somebody wouldn't want that cool whippy transition that has it's just kind of aimlessly cool ad.
Yeah. Yeah, because they think it might set them apart.
Yeah,
Sets their, like you said, if you're doing it for a restaurant, they think it might set their restaurant kind of apart from everybody else.
but I feel like that stuff
Which,
works on social media. When you got like the
yeah,
10,
it
20-second
is.
ad, those whip transitions, and I don't know why that's my example every time, just because you see them. The whip transitions, the rolling gimbal, and the funky shots and that kind of stuff it does get your attention when it is something different. But
Yeah, I think I don't remember if you said you have one or not, but TikTok, it's starting to become a thing of TikTok. I'm
I
starting to
don't.
see more
I don't
often.
have one. But yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's probably a good thing because it's what we call a rabbit hole that you'll never dig yourself out
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, Instagram's enough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Instagram, I'll spend too much time on that. But yeah, those so I think a videographer probably excels in like mass producing quick content like that.
Mhm.
But they definitely have their place, and cinematographers have their place. One isn't better than the other. I think they're two different roles, two different
Mhm.
jobs, two different types of content. But it's they bleed over a lot. But
I think another difference, and I think I would say this is kind of a big difference, is recognition between the two.
what do you mean?
Um, as far as like, for videography, I can't really think of anything off the bat on top of my head, but I'm sure there's awards out there you could win. But like, if you think cinematographer, you're thinking, oh, you could Emmys,
Yeah,
Oscars.
yeah.
That's another big thing.
Yeah, I think to call yourself a cinematographer, I think you have to have some kind of credibility, probably. But
Hmm.
experience, like we were saying, you kind of start off as a videographer no matter who you are. You
Yeah.
know, um, event stuff. Most people start off in weddings doing event stuff as a videographer. I think videographers can turn into cinematographers if they want.
Which I really think that, yeah, like I said earlier, that's honestly starting in videography. That's the best way to learn,
It
in my
is. I
opinion.
mean, we talked about in our wedding episode, but yeah, thrown into that stuff,
Mhm.
it's intense. It is not easy. That's why I said do not want to
Right.
like discredit videographers, but uh, yeah,
If anything, it might be more stressful being them,
yeah,
being a videographer.
probably.
So,
I mean, it could, yeah, because at least as a when you're doing more cinema work, you are planning and like the stress is out of the way before you start. Most of the stress
mhm.
is out of the way before you start shooting, or it should be depending on the client you're working with. But
Right.
you should have it all planned out and know what you're doing, and everybody's have a general idea of what's going to be done and how long things are going to take before you start shooting. But um, yeah.
Now you talked about like event work being like videography. Like as far as your guys's, like when you guys do corporate, would
Mhm.
you put that in videography?
No, no.
No.
It can be, but no.
Yeah.
I this I would put it in cinema because it's sit
Okay.
down storyboarding. Shot by shot. We're planning.
Mhm.
Just like we would a film, just like a short film. Every corporate ad we get is a short film. There's
Yeah.
a story there, but there's also a goal. Depending on whether it's a PR thing to get recognition or it's like a new service that somebody's offering. Like, what do you need? Is
Mhm.
it informal or is it like just recognition of a brand or something? So there's a goal with it, and then yeah, it's literally shot by shot. And I'm planning like what lights am I bringing, how am I lighting this, where are we shooting it at, what are they wearing, who's speaking. Um, yeah, there's just like little short films every time, but so yeah,
Yeah.
it's cinema for sure. And
Yeah,
that's
that makes sense.
and that's what I like doing. I think commercials are my favorite thing at that,
Mhm.
but that's where I do want to get away from the videography stuff, um, but they are fun
Mhm.
sometimes. But yeah, I just that's not what I want my brand to be. I
Right.
don't want to
Yeah.
be the event people that are. There's enough people out there doing that stuff, and there's a lot.
Oh, for sure there
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like it's just not my style to do all the whippy transition stuff. It's just
Mhm.
I just
Same. I don't think I've ever did a video that I've or wedding that I've ever done anything like that.
Yeah, neither have I. I
Mm-mm.
thought about it and I wanted to, and I sometimes I plan to do it, and then I started, and I'm like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. It starts to feel like a YouTube video or just a video.
Mm-hmm.
That's where
Yeah.
I want it to feel like a film, not a video.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wedding film,
Yeah,
not a wedding video.
because I think once you think of weddings, you're like, well, I want the wedding. You want the wedding to seem like it lasts forever,
Yeah.
and you don't like with these quick transitions. You're like, oh, it's done, it's over with.
Yeah, you don't have a
So
chance to like see see. I seen
exactly.
one recently, yeah, and it was like just they were doing like a frame on top of frame on top of frame, like doing these like stair step frame transitions. Like, whoa, like
Mhm.
that's weird. Like an
Yeah, that
'80s music video. It was like, what?
right.
But which some people I'm sure like that. It is
Yeah.
cool, but it's just not my definition of cinema. You know,
Mhm.
I it seems like they just captured stuff and they're like, well, this shot's boring. How can I make it look cool? Star
Right.
wipe, you know, or I don't know, but no
When
one's done that. I'm not
a
saying
lot
that,
of
but
times, yeah,
I thought we were doing it as a joke
and a lot of
once.
times it's not even needed.
Yeah, none of it isn't. Like, what's the purpose? But um, unless like usually when you see that, the whole video is like that because the
Mhm.
purpose of the video was just this to be a fun video and it's just cool. And um, yeah, I don't feel like I don't feel like doing those transitions nails emotion. It's like you're more watching the video and not watching the people and the day and how it really felt, how the how the day was flowing, you know. Cuz like I try to like pick up the vibe of the wedding day and try to figure out what needs to be captured here, and I'm already thinking of like, well, is this going to be like a fast-paced wedding film, or is this going to be like, are they more, because there's some couples that are really just fun and outgoing and it's just a fun day, and there's some people who are like, they that day means so much to them, and they're really I don't want to say like taking it serious. I mean, they feel like everyone takes it serious and they're putting that much money into that day, but yeah, I don't know. You just pick up the mood and the vibe and kind of
Mhm.
capture it in that way. But
And I think one big takeaway, if it's anything that anyone, people listening to this or watching this takes away from the episode is like no matter whether you're a videographer or cinematographer, story is king.
yes,
So like don't try to jeopardize that with, all the fanciness.
no, exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's a really good point. I think a lot of people let the story get away from them. You watch a
Hmm.
video to be told a story. There's a story there, whether it's informal or if it's just an emotional story to write, you know, an emotional ride. And I think people can get lost in in the when they're just making a video for the sake of making a video and putting cool
Yeah.
transitions in there and all that. But um,
Now, I mean, if like we talked about, like if you're doing a quick little YouTube thing, it's kind of whatever. But if you're wanting to tell
yeah,
more of a serious story,
if it's for
or
YouTube, YouTube's fun. You know, it's for fun.
yeah,
That's where that stuff
hmm
belongs in YouTube.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't see. I mean, nothing's wrong with it. It's just not my style. I think if I
yeah,
look, it's like,
same, yeah,
is this telling the story? Is it pushing this scene further? Is it pushing this video or film, whatever you call it, video, film?
hmm
But that's another thing too. Is what do you? What's the difference between a video and a film?
I was just about to ask the same
I
question
don't. I don't really have a
because
definition for that. I don't think.
I don't either, and I think that's because like
I don't know
they still both take time.
exactly. No,
Like
one's
it's
I make because I don't know wedding films. I like to call them wedding films, not wedding videos, because I feel like video
mhm.
isn't. But a video can still. I don't know. I don't think it matters. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it really like we said, it's subjective.
It is
So, and
subjective.
I think that's what's the best thing
Hmm.
about art is really though.
And everything that we just said, maybe somebody disagrees with. I don't know. There's
Yeah.
probably a
Oh, I'm
cinematographer out
sure.
there who claims to be, no, I'm a videographer, not a cinematographer. Or that's not a cinematographer. You're not a cinematographer. You're a video. I don't know. But,
Mhm.
and I heard someone, this is not the same, but like a difference between a movie and a film. You ever, I think we talked about
Yeah.
this, but yeah, somebody told me that a film kind of leaves an impact, makes them feel something, and a movie is like just fun to watch. So like Like Transformers would be a movie.
And movie, yeah,
And then a film
absolutely.
would be something, something more like Pursuit of Happiness or something. I keep trying to think of a good movie.
Yeah, I feel like movies are, if someone's trying to distinguish the two, I feel like movies are something that you can go to lose yourself,
Yeah.
and you're like, this whole big fantastical world, like, like Transformers or the Marvel movies or
Mhm.
the any superhero movie, or whereas in like films, maybe really make you think and like, hmm, what kind of big life decision should I make?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, how does this relate to me? Yeah. You read into it like a Bible verse. What does
Right?
this mean to me? But yeah, I don't know. That's about all I have to say on that. You about it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep. I think that's about it for this episode. If you guys want to read that article that I mentioned at the beginning on absorbproductions.com, I'll link it in the show notes where we go over a little bit too. If you would rather read the difference between a videographer and a cinematographer, me and Caitlin sit down and talked about this, and Caitlin put it into better words than I could have come up with on there. But yeah, I think it made a lot of sense. It's something I couldn't really define until we put this together into words. Well, so I hope people read it. Well, that's it for this episode. We will catch you all in the next one.
See ya.